One-shots. They've been a hot topic in gaming for a while, though it's mainly in the PvP and multiplayer sphere that you actually see a lot of discussion about it. And it makes sense. I mean, I have to shoot this guy 20 times, he only has to shoot me once. What's the point? Insta-kills, one-shots, whatever you want to call them, are always pretty frustrating, and you don't really need some elongated explanation to actually understand why. But what if I were to say that there's actually a difference between a good and a bad one-shot? Some one-shots are actually balanced in their design, and others, we'll get to them. But before we get too deep into this, I need to clarify that I am not talking about one-shot combos in this video. Well, there's going to be one exception to that, but again, we'll get there when we get there. The one-shots that I'm talking about are exactly that. One instance of damage that just instantly kills you. So things like Luigi grabbing you at 0%, a ghost double tapping you, are not going to be things that I'm going to be discussing in this because they aren't actual one-shots. So, what's the difference between a good and a bad one-shot? Well, I came around about 4 different concepts that separate a good and a bad one-shot from each other. And the very first one is risk. A one-shot is a very high reward, so it needs high risk to mirror that. Whether it's because you need to be in a dangerous position for going for it, failing leaves you extremely vulnerable, or it can be easily prevented by common countermeasures that every player has, there has to be some element of risk involved. Next is a high cost. The most common example would be stuff like an ultimate, a super, any big move that would require a lot of resources to pull off. Things like a time investment being needed in order to actually set it up, which can also be seen as a risk factor. You've also got things like just needing an extra teammate to actually help that one shot become a reality. Third is counterplay. You need some option of any description in order to actually deal with these one-shots, and it can be an option that's just don't interact with them. Whether it's preventing it or blocking it, you need to make sure that it's something common that every player will be able to deal with. You need options to deal with the one-shot, whether it's preventing or avoiding it, with one of the most typical examples being something like a countdown happening before the one-shot to let players actually know that they need to run or else they're going to get deleted. And finally, have the one-shot be situational. If players know that it can only happen in a certain set of circumstances, then they're going to know how to play around those, whether it's avoiding letting those circumstances happen, or just doing something extra to actually avoid them. But the first place to start is an example of a bad one-shot: snipers. In any PvP shooter game, snipers are a hot topic, all because of their one-shot capabilities. They're low risk as you're typically sat back at as big of a distance as possible to take advantage of your range. There's a low cost because what are you losing really? Your own ammo? Consistent DPS? You don't need that when you're popping heads. What about counterplay? Well, I am assuming that this sniper is being played to the highest level in these examples, and well, what is it? Most would say don't peek it, hide behind cover, hide behind shields, stay out of its LOS, and to that I have to say that is the counterplay to every gun ever. You can't die if they can't see you. And depending on the game, that isn't even an option. In things like CSGO and Valorant, you can wallbang, so only certain walls are actually protecting you. If we step over to Overwatch, Hanzo can ricochet arrows with his Storm Arrow ability, so it's still possible for him to just kill you without even seeing you. And what about the other most common counter that people say? Just get into close range. Now this has several layers of problems to it. One, how? Depending on their positioning, every angle could be covered. How could you get close in that situation? But say you do get close, say you could sneak behind, well, our situational point comes in here. Most would say snipers are exclusively mid to long range weapons, but if you're good enough and can quickscope, well, a sniper is just a shotgun with extra steps. If anything, quickscoping can be pretty easy sometimes. Snipers are a badly designed one-shot, but you can't really change this. If you make it so that sniper can no longer one-shot, no one will ever want to use a sniper in your game, especially since it's more than likely a shooter that we're talking about. Snipers have that expectation to them, so what do you do to combat it? I see only one real solution, which is reverse fall-off. You know how most games have fall-off damage? After a certain distance your bullets start to lose power? Why not flip it for snipers? Create genuine weakness for them in that close range. I'm unsure if any game has already implemented this, so if you know an example, please let me know because I want to see what it's like in practice. Snipers are very awkward to design since they always one-shot headshot and in certain cases even one-shot body shot, and it depends on your shooter's exact genre as to how strong they are. If we look at Fortnite, while snipers are certainly powerful, thanks to being able to create your own cover alongside the fact that the bullets are actually projectiles and they have to drop, they're reactable in certain situations. In a tactical FPS like CSGO or Valorant, well, nearly everything one-shot headshots, it's kind of the point, though I will say reverse fall-off applying in some of those games wouldn't be the worst addition. And Overwatch? Well, this game is my own area of expertise, so allow me to get into details here. There has been 4 characters that can be considered snipers in Overwatch. Widowmaker being the most obvious, Hanzo, Ashe, and Sojourn. Now, in the present, only Widow can actually one-shot by herself, but throughout the game's history, all of these characters have been able to one-shot headshot, and it has caused problems. We'll use Widow as a sort of baseline test for all of these. As to Blizzard's credit, they got rid of the quick scoping and close range problem that most snipers have because she actually has to charge her shots, so close range can genuinely be considered an actual weakness for her. But what about Hanzo then? Strictly speaking, he is the worst of these four at long range, no matter the version. He uses projectiles, so he needs to predict his shots at least a little bit. But unlike Widow, he's been able to one-shot at any range in the past, even excelling in close ranges, thanks to either ability of Scatter Arrow or Storm Arrow, depending on the era. Both of these abilities are perfect for close range combat, and they even succeed in the other areas that Widow has as weaknesses, being that she can't deal with tanks. For Hanzo, Scatter and Storm Arrow are brilliant tools at taking down tanks. I mean, back in Overwatch 1, Scatter Arrow outright one-shot Orisa. And mind you, this is all coming from a Hanzo player. I'm not attacking your character, lads, I play him. And you know what I said about him being strictly weaker at range? Well, since he's got a projectile, it makes him spammy because he can't just fire down at range. And let me tell you, lining up my mouse in the right place and just firing arrows down a corridor or choke has gotten me many a kill in the past. And he can still do this in the present day, he just needs a damage boost, so he can still one-shot. What about Ashe? Well, in Ashe's case, she couldn't one-shot on her own, she needed a damage boost like the present Hanzo does, most commonly being a Mercy, which basically just makes her a close-range Widow, because she could scope in and immediately clock you. And Sojourn? Basically Widow, but give her mobility and close range. They nerfed it, and then she became Ashe because she had a crippling desire for a Mercy to be pocketing her, and then they nerfed her again and she became a semi-balanced character. So what was the issue in all of these cases? Looking at Widow, she has more risk and counterplay than your typical sniper, but her cost is pretty low, and honestly, as players got better at the game, she became less and less situational. Hanzo, he's low risk because he's strong at all ranges. He's got low counterplay thanks to this range strength and the fact that he can ricochet arrows off of walls like I mentioned earlier, so it's not like you can even avoid his shots. What about the cost? Well, in the present, you do need a Mercy to one-shot, which is a higher cost than before, but she's both so popular and so common, it's nearly a non-issue. And all of these points, bar the ricocheting, can be said for Ashe and Sojourn as well. One-shots that are low risk, low cost, have low counterplay, and have some pretty low situational value are an extremely bad match for Overwatch with how fast-paced it is, yet they've popped up so many times. Sorry about that long Overwatch sniper segment, but it did have to be said. So to stick with the shooter genre for a moment though, what can we consider a good one-shot gun from this genre? Well, the classic, easy example has to be the shotgun. They're high risk because of their range restriction. If someone is more than about like 2 or 3 meters away from you, well, your damage falls off a cliff. Naturally, this risk also ends up giving a counterplay because all players have to do is make sure that they're actually social distancing from the shotgun user. And they're also situational, once again, thanks to their range. It's only being close range that this one shot can actually apply. And this stays true in pretty much every single shooter. Shotguns are one of the most balanced weapons that you could possibly have, except for one exact scenario. Good God, why is it always this game? You know how near the beginning of the video I said there's only one-shot combo that I'm going to be talking about? Well, it belongs to this creature. So Roadhog, I do plan on making a video about this lad, so I'm not going to be going too in-depth, but I do need to say this anyway. Either of his one-shot combos, whether it's just shoot, hook, shoot, or trap, hook, shoot, they're broken, and they should not exist. We've got this 700 sack of HP who can just walk up to you, grab you from wherever you are with a 6-second cooldown and just kill you instantly off it. I mean, it has it all. Like, low risk, low cost, low counterplay. Don't you dare tell me just don't peek him, just don't be in his range. That's how you deal with every kind of bullet, just don't peek it. I mean, this thing's not even situational. Like, just what is the risk to using hook? What really is the risk to using hook? You're always on the front line. You're meant to be on the front line as Roadhog, that you're a tank. So it's not like you're putting yourself in a dangerous situation to try and go for this kill. The cost? A 6-second cooldown? A 12-second one if you're using trap for it? Like, that's not a real cost. You're using this anyway. And especially if you look at this outside of a vacuum, when he's got a team to help him, if these cooldowns are down, it's not like Roadhog's missing much. He can easily wait for it and then he's back up just full power immediately. You know, man, this video just nearly seems like it was an excuse for me to talk about Overwatch's problematic one-shots. Like, God, the hyperfixation's coming back in strong. I'm gonna rapid fire some good Overwatch one-shots and then we'll retire this game for the rest of the video. So first off, we've got Reinhardt. Now, Earthshatter used to be able to crit, but then the HP changes came in and that's no longer possible, but Charge still exists, so we can talk about him anyway. And Charge, I mean, this thing is perfect as a one-shot ability. It's just the perfect example of something that has high risk. You leave yourself and your team vulnerable as you just enter the state where all you can do is go forward. And not only is he vulnerable during this, but he needs to both grab someone and pin them into a wall if he wants to actually get the kill off, which is where the counterplay for it shines. Like I said, he's vulnerable during this state. You can stun him, you can kill him. Depending on the character, you can even save your ally, whether it's something like Life Grip, Suzu, Azaria Bubble, Nano Boost to reduce the damage that they take. There's a plethora of options that can be used for this. There are ways to increase the consistency of it, but that increases the cost. Things like a stun, whether it's your own or one of your teammates, have to be used if you want to guarantee that kill, but even then it's not going to be always guaranteed because their team is still alive and able to help you. So what about one-shots with a high cost? Well, of course we need to look at ultimates here, and I think D.Va is one of the best options we can look at. D.Va ult both has a countdown and you can easily block the damage by hiding behind something as skinny as a pole. What about Cassidy ult? Not only does he have to charge up the skull on you if he wants to actually get that kill, but he's left in a vulnerable state during this, so you can stun him or kill him the same as Rein. Though in Overwatch 2 it's a lot less risky than it used to be, but sure look, it's still risky enough. And for situational one-shots, well, environmentals are the best place to look at for this. Not only do you have to be near a ledge, but you need to be against a character who has some form of knockback type ability to actually send it. A Lucio, a Pharah, Orisa, Reinhardt if they're insane, Roadhog, any of these characters have to be on the enemy team, and you know by then, well, I just have to avoid going this way near the ledge where they can actually knock me off. And this isn't even just exclusive to Overwatch. I was talking a while ago about this game called Supervive, which also has these environmental instant kill knockouts. Go watch that video, by the way, it was actually real fun to make. Alright, no more Overwatch. What's another good example of a one-shot? Well, we can take the Spy TF2, or really any game with a knife and a spine. Backstabs. They're similar in their design to shotguns, but if anything, the risk is even higher. You need the enemy to be facing away from you, which typically means you've probably gone on some kind of flank to get into the best position. Well, say goodbye because you're not getting your weapon out in time unless you're after giving them the threat of their life and they can no longer aim. They check every box. You're never frustrated after being backstabbed in a game because it's on you for letting all those conditions line up in order for them to smack you. But let's move away from the shooter genre for a moment. We've spoken enough about it. What about Pokemon? I'm actually quite the competitive Pokemon enjoyer, and while most competitive players do dislike OHKO moves, I actually think they're designed relatively well. They've got risk with a low accuracy, which increases their cost as a miss results in a free turn for your opponent. There's counterplay for 3 of the 4 of them thanks to type immunities, and counterplay for all of them in abilities like Sturdy or the Focus Sash item, and they're situational thanks to their inconsistency. Granted, I completely understand why Smogon singles bans them because you're basically just gambling and takes away a lot of the skill and mind games. But what about VGC? In the official format run by the Pokemon Company itself, there's rarely ever any restrictions or bans, and all of these moves are legal yet are nearly never run. Now that's mostly thanks to their inconsistency that they're never used in tournament, except for one time. Well, technically 2, but we'll ignore the 4 side type moves Articuno from a while ago. In early Scarlet and Violet VGC, a common strategy was Fissure, Stomping Tantrum, Ting Lu. This combo took OHKO moves from being an inconsistent yet fairly well designed one-shot to absolutely breaking them. You would invest full bulk into your Ting Lu, just making it the hardest Pokemon on the field to take down, and then just keep clicking your buttons. Fissure one-shots anything if it rolls a 30% hit chance, instantly taking down an opponent. And if it fails, Stomping Tantrum picks up the slack. Stomping Tantrum is normally a 75 base power move, but if the move before it failed, which includes misses, the power doubles. And the issue is pretty clear here. Your risk is thrown out the window because you get rewarded for your misses, and once the risk is gone, all the other factors crumble because they just don't matter as much as before. I mean, the only counterplay to this was a flying type Pokemon of some description, but keep in mind this is doubles, so you could just have some kind of anti-flying type teammate and you would be absolutely golden. We've had examples from shooters, from Pokemon, so what about some fighting games? And the first place we have to start is going to be Jigglypuff from Smash Bros. Melee. Now, in fairness, Rest isn't a one-shot in the technical sense. It doesn't actually just one-shot you when you're at 0%. You need to be at roughly 30 for it to count, but as far as a Smash Bros. Competitive rule set goes, this is about as close as we'll get, so I'll still use this example. And to return to the chart categories, well, once again, it checks every single box. There is only one active frame of Rest. There's only one frame, the very first one, that actually deals damage. Every frame after that is Jigglypuff sat there doing nothing. So it's got the risk, the cost, and you can even argue that because of the 30% requirement in order to kill most of the characters, well, it's actually got that situationalness as well, though that is debatable, it all depends on your viewpoint. To stick within the Smash sphere for a moment, let's take a look at Game & Watch. Ultimate Game & Watch specifically, I should have said that. But I've already spoken about him before, so I don't really see a reason to actually talk about him here. Alright, never mind. His side B, Judge, is just weird. I don't know if I can actually call this a good or a bad one-shot because it's just so awkward. As I'm sure most of you know, Game & Watch rolls a number from 1 through 9, with 1 damaging himself and 9 KOing opponents as low as 10%. And I should clarify that I am actually only looking at this in a vacuum because Game & Watch himself in Smash, it's kind of hilarious how he's actually one of the most busted characters in the game. It's hard to place Judge in any of my categories because 1 is the only bad option for it. 2 through 9 do something to your enemy, so there's always a reward, with one of them just being astronomically larger than the others. It's not like the Okos in Pokemon, which just, you either hit or you miss. There's always an option for Game & Watch unless he rolls a 1, in which case he's the only person who loses. So the risk isn't that high, and then when you look at the cost, counterplay and situation, well, the numbers don't really add up in a good way here. Judge just isn't really the best designed ability in a competitive type of scene because it's just gambling. But honestly, I think if you gave Game & Watch a different side B, he'd probably do just fine. I mean, that's how strong he is currently without this gamble of an ability. And for one more fighting game example, we're going to take a look at a recommendation that came from my chat. I stream on Twitch sometimes, twitch.tv/PixelRory. Anyway, they were telling me about moves from Guilty Gear called instant kills. Aptly named enough here. And for the uninitiated, like I was, there are layers to this. First, Guilty Gear has the tension gauge, however you want to say it, and it's your typical super meter type of deal. You use this to use your supers or your Roman cancels, any type of special move. Either way, that stuff will cost you tension, but the instant kills actually cost some as well, in a technical sense. You need to enter instant kill mode by... I don't play fighting games, I don't know what this means. How do I verbalize this? Anyway, after entering instant kill mode, you start burning through your tension gauge, and eventually, if you run out of that, you start burning through your HP, though the HP burn can't kill you. In instant kill mode, a special combination of buttons will let you use your instant kill right then and there, if it lands, ending the match and the round immediately. But if you miss, you are, as we say in the business, royally fucked. I should say, regardless of a hit or a miss, after using the instant kill, you are not going to be able to use any of your tension moves for the remainder of that set. And everything about these scream a well-designed one-shot to me. The risk is through the roof. Even if you do hit it well, if you do get that one-shot off, well, you're not going to be able to use your tension gauge unless you use it at the very end, I suppose. And speaking of the instant kill mode, well, this is the perfect way to add counterplay. Once your opponent sees you enter this mode, they know that the instant kill is an option on the table. It's not like the instant kill can just be pulled out whenever the player decides and just kill someone in seconds. It's not just random. After seeing them enter the instant kill mode, you're going to be on your guard, either trying to cancel it or trying to block the one shot from coming through. And you can block it, you can get them out of the instant kill mode by putting in the exact same combo that they did, or you can just attack them during the attack and everything will be ruined for them. And of course, there's cost to this as well. I mean, losing your entire tension gauge is going to be terrible for you if you don't do this properly, and naturally they are situational because it's not like you just want to pull this out at the start of a match. I love the design behind this thing. It is everything that you could actually ask for in a one-shot, so I do need to say, Kraken, thank you so much for helping me understand this properly. You were a big help. So, the difference between a good and a bad one-shot? Just don't have it available at all times, really. See, some of you may have thought that this was like a well-thought-out video of me researching one-shots in other games, when in reality it was just an excuse for me to rant about one-shotting snipers in games. I'm extremely biased and hate those things. But anyway, on a serious note, if there's any one-shots in games that you know about or anything that you want to add to this video, whatever it may be, please drop it in the comments, let me know. I want to see what other people think. And for some brief self-promotion, I've got a Twitch, Twitter, and Discord all in the description, so you know where to go if you want to look for those. But for now, if you're still here, go on, drop a like, a sub, all that YouTube stuff, and I'll talk to you next time, lads.